What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Alan Wall's Photography. I'm Alan, and in today's short video, I'm going to show you how you can get into macro photography for just a few dollars and get some really sharp images doing it. We're going to be talking about Enlarger lenses today. So I am frequently asked, what's the best way to get into macro photography if I'm not sure that I really want to do it? I don't want to invest a lot of money, and I get that. I mean, I think we all started doing our macro photography any way we could throw it together. And I've talked in other videos about using regular prime lenses and putting them on extension tubes or reversing them on extension tubes. We've talked about using a combination of different lenses, like a longer prime lens with a shorter prime lens reversed on it. And all of those techniques are great. They all give good results. But that's not what we're going to talk about today, because this is a different kind of macro photography. It comes with its own challenges, but it also comes with the benefits of some of the sharpest macro pictures you're ever going to get. Which is why, though some people think of this as an advanced macro photography technique that I'm going to show you, I think of it the other way around. I think it is a great way for somebody who's not familiar with macro photography to get a feel for what high magnification photography can look like. And then if you love it, you can invest in lenses. But back in the days when dinosaurs roamed the earth, we didn't have digital cameras, obviously. We didn't even have digits back then. And all of the cameras that were used were film cameras, which meant when the shutter opened, the light was transmitted onto the film and it created a negative. And then in order to turn that negative into a print, what the photographer had to do was shine light, focused light, through the negative and onto a piece of photographic film, which would then be developed. And in order to do that, a whole bunch of different companies created these lenses. These are the Enlarger lenses that were used to spread the light out onto the photographic film. They come in all kinds of focal lengths and at all kinds of different prices. And there are a bunch of different manufacturers. And I'm not going to get into any of them, because I'm going to recommend to you one particular lens that I use that I have been extremely satisfied with. I think it's your safest bet. Of all of the lenses out there, it will be the easiest one for you to get the hang of this technique with, and it'll last you a lifetime. These things are built like tanks, and they are Nikon lenses, and I'll get into that in a bit more detail in just a second. What makes these lenses different than, say, using a standard 50mm prime lens like this, either on extension tubes or reversed, is that the Enlarger lenses are called flat field lenses, which means they're designed to cast a very uniformly sharp, flat image, as opposed to the curvature you're going to get with standard camera lenses. So that makes these ideal for very sharp images. Now, you can reverse these or you can use them the way round that they're intended to. I'm going to be showing you the technique where you reverse the lens. And I'm going to be doing that because my experience with my particular copy of this lens is that gives me the sharpest images. It isn't necessarily going to be the case with all of these lenses. You can use the lens that I'm going to show you either way around. But for today's technique, I'm going to show you this quick and easy way to do it. So here is all the basic equipment that we're going to need to do macro photography with a reversed Enlarger lens. Now, I mentioned that there were two different versions of the lens we're using. It's the Nikkor 50mm 1:2.8, and there are two versions. There is the older version, which you'll see has the has a scalloped ring on the front of it. It's all metal, and this is surprisingly, they're as expensive as the newer version, but the newer version has some advantages that you're going to want. This is the newer version. It does not have the Nippon Kogaku Japan logo on the front. The old one does. So we're going to move that to the side so there's no confusion. This is the one we're going to be using. This is the N version of the exact same lens. And the difference is you'll notice that there's an illuminated window for showing you your aperture, that it clicks from aperture to aperture, and that it has a front ring that's got these ridges on it. It's plastic, but I'll tell you, it's heavy too. It's a solid piece of equipment, and it creates incredibly sharp images because it's a flat field lens, as I mentioned. It's designed to be sharp all the way to the edges. Now, the N version, which used to be $25 to $30. I don't know when all the prices went up. I checked on it today, and they're anywhere from 50. Well, no, I saw one for 40 up to about 80 and above for brand new ones that have never been used. Don't buy a new one. Buy a used one. Just make sure it doesn't have too many scratches and scuffs on it. Even when they do, they work great. They're sharp. But anyway, the anatomy of this thing is it has a filter ring on the front, I'm going to call this the front. This is going to be the front the way we're using it, but this is the way it would be used. This piece would screw into the Enlarger. But anyway, around the wide part of the lens, there is a 40.5 millimeter filter ring. On the other end is an industry standard thread. This is the Leica 39 thread. It's a 39 millimeter male thread that just about every Enlarger lens has. And in order to put this onto your camera, just like so, you would need an adapter that goes from the Leica, it's also known as the M39 or the L39 on one end, with a bayonet F-type if you're using Nikon on the other. And one would screw into the other, and then this would screw into your camera. If I do that, I will put an additional piece, just a very small extension tube, to keep this away from the inner workings of the camera, because that really impinges on the flange distance a bit. But we're not doing that today. We're mounting it this way around. With this being 40.5, we need a way to adapt that to a bayonet mount. And why is that? Because we're using extension tubes that have a bayonet mount at one end, which goes in the camera, and then at the other end you have the female bayonet mount. This is designed to receive a lens like so. This 50 millimeter lens would just fit on there like so, but we're not using that. We're using this, which is why we need to get the adapter. So what I can do is I'll put this on now, because that's not going anywhere. It clips onto the front of the extension tube like so, and it's pretty flush. Now, they make a bayonet to the Leica 39 thread. You can buy those. I have one somewhere, but I couldn't find it today. So I'm just going to use some other adapter rings that I had lying around, and I'll show you how you can do it with them. This is where are we? This is a 40.5 male ring that will fit nicely into the filter holder at the front of the Enlarger lens. So I can screw that on, and this goes up to a 55. And 55 will not fit into to this because this is a 52 millimeter reversing ring. So what I need to do is I need to step the 55 down to a 52. And here we have a ring that just does just that. You can buy these for $4 a piece, or I recommend you buy a full set of step up and step down rings. It comes with about 24 rings in every conceivable size for $20 or thereabouts. So this is a 55 to 52 step down, which means if I screw this on to the 55, I've now turned it into a 52, which will fit perfectly on the end of my extension tubes. Brilliant. That's all there is to it. Now this, of course, goes on the camera. Let's put it on there. Put it on the right way around, just for a change. So that fits on like any lens would. Now, that is the end result. Now, because of the extension tubes, and because I've reverse mounted this, it's called an asymmetric lens, with this mounted like so, I can get a magnification of about 1.75, almost 2 to 1. So I can double the size of what I'm photographing with this. Now, a couple of things about this you need to be aware of. The first is that each one of these lenses has a sweet spot when it comes to the aperture size. Let me take it off to show you. It's interesting. I've got several of these, and they don't all have the same sweet spot. Usually, the ideal aperture is going to be about 2 clicks beyond the widest open, which would put it there at 5.6. That gives you very, very little depth of field. That gives you a little bit more, but it's a much smaller hole, and the light becomes a bit of an issue. But on this particular copy of this lens, f8 is actually the sweet spot for this lens. So that is where I would set it, and that is where I would leave it. But you're not quite done yet. There's one other thing. Well, there's a couple of other things, but one in particular that you need to be aware of. When you put this on your camera, like so, there you go. So we're all ready to go, but there is a problem with this design because it's meant to be used in this direction. When you're using it in the other direction, light can actually leak in to the system through here, and it can cause some really unpleasant graying of the image in parts. So what I do, I'm not going to tell you the brand name of this Gorilla Tape, but it is incredibly sticky stuff, and I never go out without the stuff. I just take one piece, make sure I'm in the right aperture, and stick it over there like so. And that will prevent any light leak, and it'll prevent any softening or graying of the photograph. There is one other thing I do if I'm taking this out in the field, and I can't show you because I can't find the adapter. But I have another adapter that has a Leica 39 thread that I can screw on here, and I can add one piece of an extension tube to the end of it. Let me show you what I mean. You just have to use your imagination, but I attach this and it ends up sitting about there. And what that does is it creates a very small lens hood. And that's important because any stray light getting in can also interfere with your image. And also it kind of protects the glass, which is really exposed here. The working distance of this is probably, about 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters. I didn't actually calculate it, but it's close. It's close. If you're going to if you're going to use a fancy macro lens, you can get, a foot away from your subject and still get maximum magnification. But that's $700. Even a less expensive micro Nikkor 85mm, which I like to use on my crop frame cameras, even this thing used is $400. So yeah, these are expensive, but what I'm showing you is not. Let me peel that off because I'm not going to be shooting with it. Like I say, you can pick up one of these for, let's say, $60. You can get this. This is the step up ring from 40. Well, I'll write this down for you. So this is a step up 40.5 up to 55. This is the cheaper they are, the harder they are to get on and off. So this is 55 down to 52 step down. And then the last thing, there's a way you can get this off. The last thing is a 52 to F mount, or whatever kind of mount you're using, depending on your camera, like so. Now, this I paid $4 for. This was part of a set, but you can get them separately for $5. And this from Photodiox, the 52 to F mount, was $7. When I bought this, it was $40, I think, about there. And that is really not out of line with what you might be able to find if you dig around on eBay. Just make sure you look carefully at the photographs to make sure you don't have a bunch of fungus or too much scratching on the glass. You won't be able to see it, but this one does have a scratch on the front element. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you can, but it doesn't appear to make any difference. So it came to me that way. So anyway, we're talking about $56 for something that has better magnification than this. I mean, this macro lens, this is my Tamron 90. I swear by this. It's a great macro lens. It has 1:1 magnification. This has almost 2:1 magnification. So this is a great, inexpensive way to get into macro photography. I mean, extreme macro photography, really. And you can just carry this out in the garden with you on a nice sunny day. You're going to get all the light you need to take pretty much any photograph you want to. Now, if you're going to be trying to use this indoors, as I'm sure you will, and you don't have a fancy rig or anything like that, you don't have bellows or any other equipment, and you just want to use this like this, I would strongly recommend investing. There we go. I would strongly recommend investing in a couple of cheap speed lights that you can get these from Godox. I think I got this whole pair for like $140 for two of them. And these things can be hooked up with a wireless trigger. You'd want to position one on either side of your subject, and use very low power, about 1/8 or 1/4 power, and you'll get absolutely fantastic results, and that will be more than enough light. Focusing might be difficult, so I usually recommend having a flashlight or a bright table lamp that you can focus with, and then turn it off to get you. Well, you don't even have to turn it off, because the flash will hide any of that that ambient light. So that's really all there is to it. When you use a setup like this, you're able to get some very, very sharp pictures. I strongly recommend you find a way to create a hood for this. I mean, a roll of paper with a little bit of sticky tape to hold it in place is all you need. You want to have some shading because you don't want a lot of stray light getting in. Another issue you may find, I didn't get much into the extension tubes. You can buy these extension tubes that have electrical contacts on them, which allow you to use regular lenses and still have autofocus, but you're not going to be using autofocus with this. You're going to be setting your camera in manual. You're going to be setting your aperture on the lens itself, like we talked about, and you're going to be leaving it right there, and you'll shoot all your images on there, whatever aperture you pick. And your shutter speed will be determined by your lighting. And I always recommend, because it's a little unpredictable when you first start doing it as to exactly how much light you're going to need. So just experiment with your shutter speed. But of course, if you're using flash, just put it on your camera's highest sync speed. And that tends to give you the sharpest possible images, because at low power on the flash duration is so short that any movement or wiggling that the bug is doing tends to get frozen in place. I have a thing that I built, which is like a big, it's ridiculous looking. It's why I'm not showing it to you, but the camera fits on it. And then two of these, well, actually it's not these ones, cheaper flashes than these even, mount on either side. So I can lug this whole thing around with me and use the flash the whole time. That's the beautiful thing about macro, is you know what you're trying to accomplish, and there are a million different ways to do it. And this is a great way to experiment with the concept and learn exactly how to get good images. Let me warn you, though, that the depth of field on this particular setup using an aperture of f8 is really, really shallow, meaning that the area of your photograph that's actually in sharp focus is minuscule. So in the ideal world, you would set this up on a tripod and you would shoot a focus stacked series of images, like we've gone over focus stacking before, and you can find the video on my channel. But the purpose of this rig is so you can get a feel for it without having to learn how to focus stack and without having to get into Photoshop and Lightroom and do all of that stuff. It just allows you to take pictures. So what you need to focus on is the eyes. Unless there's some particular part of your insect that's more interesting than the eyes, like a stinger or something, focus on the eyes. And when I say focus, turn your autofocus off. Have your camera on manual, and your focus consists of moving closer and further away until you're in focus and then firing the shutter. It's virtually well, this doesn't even have a focus ring on it, so there is no way to focus this lens. But even if you were using this 50mm lens, the focus ring is far too gross of a movement. So what I recommend doing is getting yourself well situated, braced against something. And you're talking about moving your camera back and forth by millimeters and clicking as your insect's eyes or antennas or whatever it is you're trying to focus on will be sharp. That's all you have to do. And this is fantastic. And we can talk in later videos about all the other things that you can use this for in the studio. Yeah, That's about all I wanted to share with you. But I think that if you want to get into really high magnification macro photography without spending hardly any money at all, this is the way to go. And I'll put the name of this particular lens, the one I recommend, in the show notes, along with each of these rings. Though remember, you're going to have to select the right sizes of rings. If you get lost doing that, just leave me a message. Tell me what camera you have and which lens you're going to buy, and I'll tell you exactly what adapters you need. And then you can just order them. $6-7 tops. All right. Well, have fun. Go out there and take some close-up pictures and send me a couple of them. I would love to see them. Go to my website, alanwallsphotography.com, and there's a place there that you can leave me a message and send me some of your pictures, and I'll put them up on the program for other people to marvel at. Okay. I'm taking a break from the Lightroom tutorial stuff. I still have a few areas of Lightroom I want to go over with you, mainly the print module, and we'll do that at a later date. I want to, while the weather's nice, get outside and do some outdoor videos instead, and I'm going to do it. Right, have a good week. Talk to you again soon. Cheerio.